Good morning, everyone. My name is Reverend Emily Bruce. I'm the minister of this congregation. I want to welcome you here on this very cold morning. So thanks for coming out. In just a few moments, Dennis Randall will lead us in our chalice lighting, but as always, have just a couple announcements. First of all, today is the last day to add your scarves and hats and gloves to our mitten tree. So if you actually have any with you, you're welcome to come up now or after the service, but don't forget, come on up and add them to the tree. Also today at coffee hour, there's going to be a sign up for luminaries. Luminaries are coming back next Saturday. Woo! Yay! So we're going to be doing the popcorn. We're going to have the meeting house open. We're going to have live music from 6:30 to 7:30 here in the meeting house, but it'll be open from 5:30 to 8, I think, is the end. And also, excitingly, the Clydesdales are coming back this year too. So it's going to be a whole thing. So we need help. We need help with the popcorn in Samson. We also need a couple people throughout the time to just be the person here in the meeting house while people are coming and going. There will be a sign-up sheet at Info Island during coffee hour. So if you want to help out, look for that. Also, Deb Hurley and Carmen Gart, who I don't think are actually in the room right now. They were in charge of our Silver Bells fair that we all worked so hard on. And they're going to be at coffee hour seeking feedback. If you have any constructive, emphasis on constructive feedback for Silver Bells that you want to give them as they plan for next year. And one last announcement, True Rep, which is the theater company that rents our space. They're in the middle of their production of Anti-Mame right now. They're going to need to be getting in around 12:45 to start setting up for their matinee today. So just a heads up about that as you enjoy coffee hour. All right, that's all. So I invite you, thank you, Joan, and everyone for your contributions to our mitten tree. I invite you all to join me in taking a deep breath in and out. Let's do that one more time. I need a second breath today. In and out. Get comfortable in your seat. Put your phone down, turn your phone off maybe, or silence it, and give yourself the gift of being in this space with all of us today for the next hour. Dennis will lead us in our chalice lighting.
Good morning. My name is Dennis Randall, and I'm your worship associate today. And following Emily's advice, Reverend Emily's advice, breathe in, breathe out, and be centered in this moment. I'm a member of the worship committee, and I've had the privilege of serving this parish for about 30 years as the moderator. All are welcome. If this is your first visit or a visit so far that you can't count because you've been here so many times, you are welcome in this place, a sanctuary of joy and safety. No matter where you are on your journey in this life, this is a place to gather, to become yourself, and join others in the worship of the moment. This morning, we light our chalice with the words by D.C. Fortune. We light this chalice as a symbol of our free faith. We light this chalice to remember the miracle of the oil that burned for 8 days. We light this chalice to mark the nights of midwinter. We light this chalice as we wait for the sun to return. Today is the third Sunday of Advent, a time that historically the people of the Christian faith celebrate as a point to gather and prepare and make room for the holy. We honor Advent this morning by lighting candles and making space in our hearts for something that is new to be born within each of us. For the first Sunday of Advent, we light the candle of hope. For the second Sunday of Advent, we light the candle of joy. Today, on the third Sunday of Advent, we light the candle of love. And we celebrate the universal love that is the spirit of this season. I invite you to rise in body and spirit for our opening hymn number 18, What Wondrous Love.
As we enter a time of sharing the joys and sorrows on our hearts, I invite you to join me in singing side 1 of May Love Be Your Guide. You should hopefully have a card in your pew, and don't be afraid to share with a neighbor. Will you join me in prayer? Holy and ancient presence, love known by many names, we are in the midst of the season of celebration, celebrations of the birth of new hope, celebrations of the festival of lights, celebrations of the triumph of freedom. Each celebration has the power to kindle hope in our hearts for peace on earth, peace in our nation, and peace in our homes. We have gathered in this season of celebration seeking comfort to soften the pain and the losses our lives have suffered in this year that is ending. We hold this season of celebration with the tenderness and love of our family, friends, and our community that surrounds us. Let us be embraced by the power of this sacred space that is created by this beloved community. Let both joy and sorrow take their places in the fullness of our lives. Let the strength we embody bind us together as we move through these seasons of celebration into a new year with hope for peace on the earth. May it be so, and amen. Let us now be still together. Please join me in singing side 2 of May Love Be Your Guide. May your heart raise earth and sky. May you see life's gift to you. May love be your guide, your
This morning's reading is The Lights of Hanukkah by Reverend Rachel Hayes. In a time that was long ago, in a time that is now, things seemed impossible. Brave people fought and survived, holding close what matters most, creating a future for their children, honoring the lessons of their forefathers. They were so tired, but every time their strength almost failed, they found just a little bit more. Surrounded by enemies, they lit a tiny bit of oil to say to each other, "This matters." To say to the ages, "This is who we are." To say to their God, "You above all." They knew they did not have enough oil to last, but still they set flame to wick. They had come too far not to do so. Everyone knew they did not have enough oil, but the oil did last. One night's oil burned for 8 nights. For God, for the ages, for each other. In a time that was long ago, in a time that is now, the lights of Hanukkah shine in the night. In a time that was long ago, in a time that is now, people find fuel and dare to set fire to it, knowing it cannot last. But sometimes it lasts. Sometimes it lasts. Details. Now is the time of our offering. When we give, we say yes to something we value. In this congregation, we take up an offering each week to say yes to the values of our UU faith and yes to this beloved community. Please give as you are able. Today's offering will be gratefully received. Our offering anthem is Immortal, Invisible Words by Walter Smith, and the music by John Roberts.
Thank you, choir. Love a good a cappella anthem. Lovely. Good morning again, everyone. So this sermon today is devoted to the story and lessons of Hanukkah, which actually doesn't start until next Sunday. But since our kids' pageant has long been scheduled for December 18th, you're all getting a head start on Hanukkah this year. Aren't you glad? So one thing to know is that Hanukkah is actually the only Jewish holiday that is not mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, what some of us also call the Old Testament. It's not mentioned at all. In fact, Hanukkah is actually part of what's called the Midrashim, which is a whole separate source of wisdom written by ancient rabbis, sacred commentaries on biblical text. So that's where Hanukkah is actually coming from. It's not in the Old Testament. All of which may account for Hanukkah being considered, at least theologically, a minor holiday. And ironically, Hanukkah, which is rooted in a revolution against assimilation, is one of the most well-known and assimilated Jewish holidays in this country. Happening in the same month as Christmas, it's often rounded up into holiday celebrations. So you'll see menorahs alongside Christmas trees and snowflakes in advertisements and holiday displays and more. And no, it is not lost on me that I'm preaching about Hanukkah surrounded by a Christmas tree, an Advent wreath, and a really big wreath behind me. Many UU churches actually light menorahs in December along with Advent wreaths. But as a non-Jewish UU, I don't think it is my place to be lighting any menorahs. But I do celebrate the story of Hanukkah because it's a story of hope and perseverance and resilience. All of us need those stories, am I right? Especially in our world today. So a quick retelling of the story of Hanukkah first. It begins in the year 167 BC, when the Greek Assyrians, led by King Antiochus, invaded and occupied Judea. Now, Antiochus was an insecure and despotic ruler whose level of narcissism was matched only by his extravagance. So upon entering Jerusalem, Antiochus and his men desecrated the Jewish temple and turned it into a place to worship Zeus. Antiochus's nationalism led him to decree that all Jewish subjects reject their own God and their own religion and worship as the Greeks did. The subjugation of the Jewish people was as profound as it was despairing. Imagine a nationalistic and narcissistic pope sweeping into our country and demanding that we all become Catholic. But a small band refused to capitulate to Antiochus's demands, and a revolution was born. 3 years later, because yes, it took 3 years, this small group led by Judah, the Maccabee, accomplished the unthinkable. They drove the Assyrians from Jerusalem, and they took back their sacred temple. Now, upon re-entering, they found a mess. Almost everything in that sacred space had been destroyed or sold. The altar was broken. All of their holy objects had either been damaged or sold. And most importantly, the lamp, the eternal light that represents the presence of God in that space, had been extinguished. So the Maccabees cleaned up and restored their sacred temple. And on completion, they sought to rededicate it with an 8-day celebration. As the story goes, they only had enough consecrated oil to keep the eternal light lit for 1 day. They had not had the chance to make more oil because it takes a while, and they were understandably busy rebuilding their temple. So their struggle had been great and their victory was complete, so they didn't want to wait for more oil. They wanted to move ahead and reclaim their religious home. It was so important to them. So they lit the candle for the lamp for the first day of worship, knowing full well that they only had enough oil for 1 day. But on the second day, the lamp was still lit. And on the third day, the same. Each day of the 8-day celebration, the lamp continued to burn. Hanukkah is a story of miracles. It is a miracle that 1 day's worth of oil lasted for 8 days. It's a miracle that the Maccabees, the small ragtag group of poorly armed Jews, were successful in defeating a more powerful opponent and reclaiming their holy space. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, was written in the scrolls of Zechariah about the Maccabees' struggle and eventual victory. Hanukkah is also a story of the fight for religious freedom and diversity. The Maccabees were in a struggle for their own identity, for their own inherent worth and dignity. Their victory was not just against an army of people, but an army of ideas, a governmental power that preached intolerance, a governmental power that was afraid of religious pluralism, a governmental power that used its political and military might to attempt to eliminate the diversity that creates a strong and vibrant society. Rabbi Ariel Russo of Congregational Sons of Israel in Nyack, New York, writes this about celebrating Hanukkah. Our Hanukkah candles symbolize our pride and highlight what has often been our vulnerability. It is not always easy to be Jewish. The light of the candles remind us of the power of miracles and how our people have persevered. We light the candles and display them in our windows with the acknowledgement that not everyone, Jews and others, are able to openly assert their identities. In this way, the small light represents hope for when we can all present our full selves without fear. Hanukkah has always resonated for me, not as a story of a miraculous occurrence or primarily as a story for a struggle for religious freedom, but rather because it's a story of profound hope. Hope in the midst of overwhelming despair and the courage it takes to make one's own light in difficult times. Rabbi Avi Weiss of the Hebrew Institute in Riverdale says, needing oil for 8 days, but having found oil that can only last for one, most people would not have lit the temple candelabra at all. Why light when failure is certain? Why make the effort if the effort is doomed? How often have you felt that way? Thinking about, I don't know, the nationalism present in our society and the struggle for human rights. Why bother? It just seems doomed to fail. But the miracle of the first day is that the Maccabees found the inner strength. They found the inner courage to light the menorah in the first place. They didn't give up. And in the end, they ended up prevailing, which is not something anybody thought was going to happen. The message of Hanukkah is to kindle the first light. It's to care. It's to be concerned. And it's to lift others. I'm so moved by this small human moment when they chose to kindle the first light, when they chose to care, because by doing so, their lives and their faith became lamps unto themselves and other people. And at this time in our lives, when the woes of the world, the woes of our beloveds, and even of ourselves can feel so many, when it can be hard to find hope or light to warm us, I look to the Hanukkah story to be reminded to care, to be concerned, to make light in the midst of shadows. I think of the stories of Jews who found ways to celebrate Hanukkah in the Polish ghettos and the concentration camps leading up to and during World War II. I think of how they made candles out of tattered cloth or lint, or, this is true, used hollowed out potatoes with drops of fat or preciously small amounts of oil that they often had to steal at their peril. They created light in the darkness. They sang, they prayed, they remembered, they tended to each other, and they hoped. I think of those who survived the horrific shooting in 2018 at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. This event was the deadliest anti-Semitic attack on record in the United States in our history. And while the trauma of that event is still very fresh, the conversations around anti-Semitism and gun control in our country have gained a new and needed energy, in part because of that attack. While grief and despair are so present still for so many, there's also action and resistance against hatred and the violent terrorism that hatred breeds. And last month, there was the dedication of a new memorial chapel for the victims, a sacred space preserving the love and compassion that they brought to their community when they were still alive. The candle of hope that their memories will be a blessing has been lit by the creation of that chapel. Because anti-Semitism is festering still in the US, I don't think I need to tell you that. But this was a shocking statistic. The Anti-Defamation League recorded 2,717 incidents of harassment, vandalism, or violence targeting Jews in 2021. That was the highest annual total since they started tracking these incidents back in 1979. The explosion of hate speech on Twitter since Elon Musk's takeover and the absolutely despicable anti-Semitic comments made by Kanye West and others remind us that this ancient prejudice is as alive as ever. So we need the Hanukkah story to be reminded to care, to be concerned, and to keep hope alive in the midst of the terrible realities of our society today. The poet Adrienne Rich writes this: "My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely and with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world." That is really the task of religion and religious people. Like the poet says, we must cast our lot with those who, age after age, choose to reconstitute the world. That is the miracle of hope. Hope that enables a small ragtag group of resistors to fight a powerful empire and succeed. Hope that binds together a people under the banner of their God to reclaim and rebuild their sacred temple. And hope that makes one day's oil burn for 8 long days. We all have the same power within us to make light in the darkness, to kindle the fire of hope in a world full of anger and division, to proudly and stubbornly insist, because I insist, that peace is possible, that compassion runs rampant through this world if only we have the eyes and the hearts to see it, to know that our own power to live our truth rests in living it in ways that can help others. That is the message of Hanukkah. That is the message that tells us to continue to make it part of our sacred duty to make light in the darkness, to kindle the flame of hope, even and especially when failure seems certain. That is the task of religion, and that is the task of us, religious people. May it always be so. Amen. Please rise in body or in spirit to sing one of my favorite hymns, number 118, "This Little Light of Mine." This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna